Hello everyone, my name is Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about the novel Sons, written by Pearl S. Buck. Now, before I go into the summary and explanation of this novel, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and or leave a comment so that the channel can continue to grow and so that I can continue to make more videos. So, this novel is part of a trilogy by Pearl S. Buck. Sons is the second installment of this trilogy, and it really basically carries on as to what the first book was trying to do. The first book really ends with the death of the patriarch, of the father figure of this family, which was Wang Lung. And this second book, Sons, it pretty much shows us what happens to the family after the death of the father, after he dies, and what the children do with the father's fortunes. We know that from the first book that Wang Long gathered a lot of fortunes. He had a lot of money, a lot of land that he worked very hard to get and to build success for himself. In the second book, the children they kind of do different things with it. Before the father died, he did tell his sons not to sell off his land, and to keep the land and to work the land and to make the land, be their source of income. But the children, they do not follow this ideal. As soon as their father died, they split the land apart and they each take their share. The We're not going to focus on the names of the sons. We're going to focus on their title, because that's what they're brought or they built themselves up to be known. The oldest son is, he becomes a landlord, right? He has lots of land and he rents it to people. They farm on it, they live on it, and he collects his money. So the landlord, he's pretty rich. He has a bunch of kids and he has a really fancy house, fancy everything. And he becomes quite lazy because his land is being occupied by people. The people are the actual individuals working on the land, and then they pay him for rent on for the land. So the landlord, the oldest brother, he really becomes lazy. He's not really doing that much, and he's just collecting. His family is fancy, and they're known as a rich family. They wear silk robes and they eat the finest foods. So they don't really have a care in the world. The second oldest, which is to be known or who comes to be known as the merchant, he is sneaky. He puts his hand in so many different pots. He is investing into so many different types of business in the Book of Sons. He's doing all types of things to save money and to make more money. In fact, he is the richest individual within this whole book, and even his brother doesn't know about him having so much money. The landlord, he really doesn't know that the merchant, his younger brother, knows and has this much. This much power, this much money, this much influence. The reason why he doesn't know it's because the merchant he doesn't really indulge in the fancy things. His wife doesn't indulge in the fancy things, even though that the merchant he's like the richest individual in the area. His wife will go out into the city or into the public and she'll haggle over like a chicken or something like that. So even though they're the richest family, the family of the merchant they live like common people. They do not show their wealth around, and the merchant he really lives life by measurement. He doesn't waste his money at all. All of it's saved, all of it's invested, and he's very careful. He's not spending money here and there just like his older brother, the landlord. Now, the third brother, he comes back to claim his fortune from his father's estate. At first, he wanted, just to pay him off for all of it. So he wanted the merchant and the landlord to just hand him over the money. He didn't want land. He didn't want anything. He just wanted money. And they didn't want to do that. The merchant, what he does is he comes up with different types of businesses and different types of plan. He manages his money and then he sends him money every so often. The third brother, really the second book, Sons, this book really focuses on what happens to the third brother. The third brother, he becomes this warlord called the Tiger. He kills this other warlord who is named the Leopard. The leper, you know, they name him different ways in the book. That's why I'm telling you leopard and leper. And the tiger, which is the third brother, he kills the leopard. And then what he does is he takes over his land. The tiger, he ends up becoming this kind of a ruler, but he's really a warlord. A warlord. Wow, he's a warlord that's collecting money here and there, collecting taxes, taking what he wants, and then he has like this army with him, helping him do so. He has plans of becoming like the greatest warlord to ever exist, and he wants his son to carry on the family tradition that he created. So he becomes the father of a son and a daughter. He really doesn't want the daughter. He kind of spends some time with her for a while. Then he sends the daughter away with her mother, with money, of course, for them to take care of themselves. He sends his son to like this military camp or this army education type schooling to become a renowned soldier, a soldier who knows how to think and not just how to fight. What happens is we learn in the novel that the son of the leopard, he doesn't want to be a soldier. He doesn't want to fight. He wants to be a farmer, which kind of echoes back to Wang Long, who loved to be a farmer, who loved to work and get his hands dirty with the soil. So the tiger's son, he disagrees with his father. He doesn't want to fight. He doesn't want to um, be a warrior, and his father is mad about this, and they go their separate ways because of this, and they couldn't like make a way for them to be together because the tiger, of course, she wanted to be the greatest warrior, the greatest warlord to walk the earth, but the son, he just wanted to farm. And in the third book, which comes after his sons, he does like make a makeshift farm for himself just so that he can get the joy of farming. So the idea to work in the soil or the I guess within this family, within the Wing Lung family, farming will always be something interesting. I think it's in their blood because every generation it's looking like it always passes down to somebody. And the tiger's son in this situation, he's the one that has this fever, this passion to work with his hands, to work in the soil and raise and grow food. So the book really doesn't end in a good place. The tiger, he's not as strong as he once was. His son doesn't take over his post, and his life. He doesn't really become this great warrior. When he starts to get old, his soldiers abandon him. They steal from him, and they move on to other parts of life. So the book is quite interesting. It really just carries on from the Good Earth, the first book, and it really shows us what happens to the sons. Um, the eldest son doesn't really become anything. He's just mooching off of the land that his father had. He's just renting it out. The merchant to me is the most impressive individual. He's not spending his money. He's not throwing it away. Even though he's the richest man, he's richer than the landlord. He's still managing his money in a way that nobody knows he's rich. But at the same time, he is the richest man alive in this book, in this story. The tiger, at first, he was quite a scary individual. He was quite a scary man. But the older he got, the less frightening he seemed. They only called him the tiger in the book just because when he had a certain facial expression that kind of looked like a tiger. So they called him the tiger because of that. So that's really the book. The book just ends with the tiger not really getting his wish, not really getting what he wanted, and his son goes a separate, and he goes a separate way, and that's pretty much the book. Now, if we're going to analyze this book, I think one thing that's really interesting about it is how for generations um, fathers have always pushed their dreams on their kids, and especially when we talk about the tiger and his son, they pushed against each other. The tiger, he didn't think about how his son felt. He didn't think about what his son wanted to do with his life. He just pushed his dreams on his son. He just pushed his dreams on his son, and his son pushed back. So it's quite interesting when we're talking about this because sometimes it's not always the best thing to do to just push your own dreams on your kids because your dreams might not be their dreams. They're not a continuation of you. Yes, you can argue in some ways that your children are a representation of you that continues to live, but in many ways they're not also because they're their own human being. Yes, you share genetics, but you're not exactly the same being. So that's one thing I think the tiger um, fails to understand. The other thing that really pops out at me within this novel, and I think that is very powerful. Wang Lung, he obtained, he worked for so many things, right? He had a vast amount of land. He had a lot of money. He had a lot of power. But there's a specific line in the novel that tells us that when he dies, his body only gets this one slim plot of land to rest. So this man breaks his back all of his life to obtain wealth, to obtain power, to obtain money. But when he died, all he got to go, I guess, to his next life, or all he got at the end was just a sliver of land to rest his body. That's it. He didn't have money, he didn't have his wife, he didn't have his kids. All of the things that he worked for during his life, they all disappeared. And all he had left, all he claimed, was the piece of land, the sliver of dirt that they buried him in. And the same thing goes for the tiger. The same thing goes for the merchant and the landlord. These individuals, they have fought. They have, um, you know, thrown other people out of business. They've stolen from other people. And really, you have to consider what is being accomplished here, because in the end, they don't get anything. In the end, you're just buried in a sliver of land with none of the things that you've spent your whole life fighting for. Now, I don't really have a solution to this. The book doesn't give us a solution to this. I think Burlesque Bug just points this out that Wang Long fought for to gain wealth, to gain power, to gain land all of his life, and when he died, his children just took all of that and they divided it, they sold it, going against his wishes. And there was a little scene within the novel where the sons were like, "He's dead. There's nothing he can do about it," and they were right. There's nothing he can do about it. He's dead. The land is theirs to do whatever they want too. And the thing is, like, when they die, their kids are going to do the exact same thing. So I think that's just a point that people should just think about and should just ponder over because it's really interesting. It's really, it makes you think. But that's really the novel. That's what I got from it. That's my portion of analysis from the novel. That's what I would say is a general idea that goes to this novel. But really, this novel is about what happens to the three sons, and more specifically, what happens to the tiger and his son, and how their conflict really, paints a different picture. So that's my summary. That's my analysis of this book. Please leave a like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys in my next video.